Bonjour tout le monde. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks to all who made this possible. In 1996, Nicholas Negroponte, in his, I guess, seminal book called Being Digital, proclaimed the change from atoms to bits is irrevocable and unstoppable. Around the same time, David Hoffman coined the wonderfully poetical and also deceptive expression, cloud computing. So this idea that computing and digital technologies are transcendent and have basically no impact on the physical world became somewhat of an axiom. So for a long time, digital technologies have been branded as greener than their physical counterpart. And if you're old enough, you sure have seen email footers like these. I guess this was greenwashing before the term became widely used. Personally, I was using this one, but it wasn't nearly as popular. Anyway, who's to say that printed material with a life expectancy of many centuries is more damaging to the environment than hosting a digital version on servers for just as long? Maybe it is, but I'd like to see the data. So is the type of energy consumption one of those cloud providers, specifically Google, is using? Those numbers, by the way, are in gigawatts hour. So that last bar from 2022 is actually 22 terawatts of power used. What about OpenAI? Well, ChatGPT requests are roughly 10 times as power hungry as Google searches. So we're not about to start consuming less energy. And this energy, it does not come from the cloud. It comes from the earth. But don't worry, Microsoft has got it all figured out. Thanks to Matt for pointing this news story yesterday to me. So while the expression circular economy has been on everybody's lips for a while now, the actual reality is more like this. Products arrive in our lives from an Amazon delivery truck, and they disappear in a waste management dumper. And whatever happens before or after that is basically hidden. It's hidden partly because of a bit of self-blindedness, but mostly by ways of marketing, corporate opacity, and sheer physical distance. The reality, which includes phases of extraction on one side and discardment on the other, looks more like this. The relationship between the artificial object we use and their natural sources have been completely severed, voluntarily, might I add. Obviously, this is no different for the materialities used by artists. And it may even be truer for artists who use contemporary technological means to create their work, which I'm one of. Many of those artists remain just as blind as the general public to these issues. To their defense, some artists, actually quite a few, are indeed aware of that and are trying to ignite some sort of reflection around this question. And a great example of that is a series called Materialism, created by a Dutch studio called Drift. In this series, they decompose familiar objects into their bare materials and invite us to reconsider the link between the artificial and the natural. The idea is to reconnect the artificial object, its natural origin, or basically to ground the digital into its materiality. There is no digital without physical, period. My own artistic approach is similar, but it's more about giving back meaning to objects that were stripped from it. I'm particularly interested by technologies that have fallen out of favor while still remaining fully functional. A lot of technological artifacts are being discarded not because they do not work, but because they simply have lost cultural pertinence or situated economic value. On Friday night, Marianne Wolf described at the micro level how the brain needs time to process information in the context of deep learning. I would argue that societies also need time to process meso and macro level changes. And that's why, as an artist, my role is to be some sort of a cultural delay. My own artistic practice and academic research is very much interested by the relation between art and those techno-residual materialities. So here are some examples of residual tech that I've used to create interactive art. A project that I'm currently working on uses the 1970s Archer home intercom system. I'm using it to record audio prompts, which are then used to generate Pepper's Ghost images inside used glassware. If that doesn't make much sense to you, don't worry. In my work, meaning tends to arrive towards the end rather than the beginning. And I think that's a good thing. Anyway, what's important here is that this intercom device most likely had a product life of about 7 to 10 years. I couldn't quite nail it down, but roughly from the mid-70s to the mid-80s. Another one of my installations leverages pen plotters from 1985 to draw portraits of visitors using squiggly lines. It was presented widely, including at 404 Festival in Japan. The HP 7440A plotter device used by the installation had a product life cycle of about 5 years. Empreinte Sonore, which was also presented widely, included at 404 in Mexico City, used a Google Home Mini digital assistant to capture vocalizations from participants. And this installation allows navigation through one's own recorded voice using movement in physical space. The Google Home Mini device used by the installation had a product lifespan of about 2 years. Panigoptic, which I'm working on right now, uses a bunch of iPhone 5 devices to capture images of participants and build eerie composite portraits from the faces of 2 or more interactors. The iPhone 5 had a... Oh no, battery. Should I stop? No? Okay. So the iPhone 5 had a product lifespan of precisely 1 year. And it's one of the shortest lifespans of all the iPhones today. So you're probably getting where I'm going. As you can see, the further back we go, the greater lifespan of technological devices seem to be. Obviously, this is only anecdotal evidence and the product of my singular practice. But in actuality, it does align with well-documented research on planned obsolescence, shortening life cycles of technological devices, and e-waste trends. But what does it mean to be archaic or obsolete? Much like Raymond Williams, I'd like to insist on the distinction between archaic and residual. The adjectives archaic or obsolete tend to suggest something that is no longer relevant. On the other hand, the residue is something that remains, that endures. So my artistic practice aims to delay this transition from residual to obsolete. And this is done through the means of care and attention. The concept of care as a Western ethical concern has spawned from, as you probably know, feminist studies reflecting on the historical inequities between sexes. And the politics of care are concerned with exclusions and power dynamics, and those also happen to be core reasons in making residues what they are. So until relatively recently, care was mostly envisioned as a human concern directed at other humans. But this is changing. Care, concern, and attention are now also being directed at things. The idea is not to divert care away from humans, but rather to realize that we are deeply and unavoidably entangled in the artificial, which is our creation, after all. So what I'm showing here is an example of kintsugi. It's the Japanese art of mending broken potteries with gold lacquer. Kintsugi does not try to hide the repair or the history of the object, for that matter. Breakage does not mean end of life. It simply means change. And beauty does not lie in perfection. I wanted to show you a picture of my favorite pair of pliers. And I couldn't find them, which is like totally freaking me out. Anyway, that's another story. But imagine a pair of old pliers. Nothing fancy. I've had them for a very long time. They do not have those like comfortable rubber handles. They're stained and scratched, and they have like worn out teeth and all that. Nevertheless, those pliers I've used for many, many years. They belong to my mother, who has passed a long time ago, and I intimately know when to use them and how to use them and how they'll react. A new pair of pliers might perform better. However, this better performance could never outweigh the ongoing relation I have with this specific tool. My attention has been directed at them for a long time. I care for them. They're not going to the bin anytime soon. In fact, my daughter will probably inherit them, since she's always found pleasure in helping me build all these weird contraptions. So disposability as a concept did not really exist until the 20th century. People had to be trained to accept it. Infrastructures had to be built for disposability to be possible. And as a society, I believe we would be better off to think about the full life cycle of the things we make instead of viewing disposability as a necessary evil. So my contribution as an artist is to, I guess, invent improbable new futures for objects that seem devoid of any. It is to showcase out-of-fashion technological objects and to make them fashionable again. It is to draw attention to the reasons we discard objects and to hopefully initiate a conversation around this subject. It is to invite us to care about our artificial creations in a new way, and mostly in a way that is coherent with our resource usage. By building art around such devices, I hope to create beauty and to foster attachment. I wish to fight disposability, which is a thing we've been led to believe was inevitable. And by using residual technological artifacts as part of my creations, obviously I'm not pretending to save this planet by recycling objects that would have been going to trash otherwise. Instead, the idea is to direct my attention and that of the engaging public towards the artificial world, the world we keep making and discarding. When I use obsolete tech, I'm asking, why does no one care about it anymore? Why are corporations not making public the designs of devices they unilaterally decided to retire from the world? Why are we denied the opportunity to act them into something new? Why is it so hard to find online manuals for residual technologies? Why erase their existence from corporate websites? Why is it so complicated and expensive and in many jurisdictions illegal for us to repair the products we own? What about the right to modify the technological goods we paid for, a so-called right to tinker? Most importantly, why are products not designed with their afterlife in mind? I guess we pretty much all have an idea of the answers to these questions. Could we perhaps, to take the words from somebody yesterday, be the kin keepers? I guess it was Peggy from yesterday. So be the kin keepers of our technological ecology. I guess my final point is this. Sincerely and deeply caring about the artificial also means caring about the natural and the human. They are not separate things. They are one. Thank you.